Aloha everyone. I think Meakala will be starting us off for the evening. That's what I was told.
All right, e ho'omaka kako o hoku pula a ka wahine o mau ke kane noho pulawa a loa'a mai o makali'i he keiki he kiakahi. Holoku o makali'i ka moana nui akea a loa'a mai o kanehuna moku ka pula pula he kiakahi. Kia aku ka maka i ka ʻālihilani a uili mai ka moku la, ua kualoa ka ʻaina o kanehoa lani ka palinana e hi'i. I ke ala pono e holo aku ai a ho'i mai, me ka ike o kou mua e kau mai nei, e mau mai ka ike a mau loa e.
Aloha mai kako. Welcome everybody to our Va'a Tales. Tonight is Ocean-Based Careers for our Halau Holo Moana students, and it's also on Facebook. So we'll see if we get any of our community joining us. But we're so excited tonight to have this awesome lineup of people joining us tonight to share their stories. And, mo'olelo are so important of how we've become the people that we are today and what along the path on our paths have helped us to get to where we are. And I'm so grateful to reconnect with some dear friends and some of our alumni as well. And I guess, Auntie Loyal, should we just head straight into it? Yes, she says yes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right. So I'm so excited because our Va'a's name is Kanehuna Moku. And when I first met Aulani and Randy, I had no idea about this place called the Kupuna Islands or the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands, which we know today as Papahanaumokuakea. And I was so lucky to be nominated by Lily Kala Kame'elehiva to show up at this meeting. I was like, okay, I'll go. What's this meeting about? And I got to go on this voyage in 2002 for a whole month on a research vessel. And I got to meet Randy and Aulani. And it really changed the course of my life because right after this voyage, Kanehuna Moku, the Va'a, came into my life. And that's how we got the name. The name came from this voyage that I was on with Aulani and Randy. And so the picture behind me is Moku Mana Mana. This is in 2019, almost 2 summers ago. And I got to sail on the canoe Makali'i. And honestly, I don't even know if this would have been possible to take a canoe up there if it wasn't for the hard work of Aulani and Randy and many others that helped to preserve and care for this place. So I'm very grateful. And so I'm excited to introduce them. So first off, we have Dr. Randy Kosaki. And he works for NOAA and Papahanaumokuakea. And I believe, Randy, the chief scientist, is that your official name?
That's one of my titles: chief scientist, janitor. Yeah, everything kind of rolled up together.
Awesome. That's how it rolls too at Kanehuna Moku Voyaging Academy. Sometimes you have to just do everything to get the work done. Awesome. Mahalo, Randy, for joining us. We also have Chad Wiggins from the Nature Conservancy. Chad comes from Hawaii Island up in Waimea. And we are scheming a new voyage to Palmyra in the future. And I'm excited, Chad, to learn more about what you do and get to know you a little bit better as well. So mahalo nui for joining us. We have Aulani Wilhelm, who's the awesome auntie to these two cool kids, Mahie and Meakala Wilhelm. But Aulani is just this amazing, fierce lady that I met right for that voyage I just spoke about. And she has 3 awesome boys. that are amazing in the water. And her husband, Mawai, is from New Zealand, and they're heading that way in a few days. But Aulani is like amazing. Oh, I'm so proud of everything she's accomplished. And now she's like on this big world stage. And it's so amazing to see all the things that you've done, and grateful for Papa Hana Mokua Kea and all the things you established while you were there. So mahalo nui. Then we have Kukui, cohort. Where are you? Kukui over there. She's from Maui. I think she was cohort 5. I could be wrong. Now goes to UH Hilo and is doing amazing things there, getting involved with, sounds like a lot of things she's going to share with us. And then we have Mahie Wilhelm, following in some of the footsteps of her auntie, and just got to go on an awesome voyage up to Lalo, or French Frigate Shoals, and was part of a marine debris cleanup. And what was even more cool for me was she was on board a ship with 2 of our alumni, Guile McGurn, cohort 1, and Kavaluna Spinney, cohort 4, I think. And so that's like the dream, right? You get on a research boat and you got a researcher, one of our students as one of the research team, and 2 of the guys that are running the ship. It's like, I was so proud. Anyway, without further ado, let's hear from our awesome guests. And we're gonna start with Dr. Randy Kosaki.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Can you hear me? Am I off mute? No, thank you all for spending your evening with me. I'm Randy Kosaki. I kind of coordinate research and field operations for Papahanaumokuakea. And I don't want to subject you to death by PowerPoint, but I did want to show a few slides just to kind of give you an idea of what I do. Let's see if I can get this to run. Okay, it's not going to let me. Yeah, okay, no worries. I just had a bunch of fish pictures because I'm a fish biologist by background. It's not really rocket science how I got from there to here. You kind of look around my office behind me, I got fish lures hanging on the walls and trolling reels behind me. And I got fish lures everywhere. I just kind of grew up going to the beach, fishing, diving. I just love being in the ocean, especially diving. I love fishing. I'm probably the wrong guy to be working for NOAA sanctuaries because my favorite hobby is actually killing fish and eating them. But it's all good because in conservation, I see it as a two-way street. This is how I was raised, that extraction, when it goes down in Western law, it comes out as an indigenous right. And I was not raised that this is a right. I was raised that this is a privilege. Before you earn the privilege of extraction, you show your malama for the environment. You show that you care for the resource first. And then you take care of the resource, and it in turn will take care of you. So given how many fish have died alongside my boat over the years, I went into a career in marine conservation because I have some sins to atone for. So it's kind of part of that reciprocity, that reciprocal relationship where I extract from the ocean, but I've also made a career out of caring for the ocean. So I grew up fishing and diving, but with a strong conservation ethic. And I really learned my lesson when I was kind of learning how to 3-prong, and I speared a kihiki, a Moorish idol. And my dad said, all right, you killed it, you eat it. And it was absolutely horrible. So it was a very early lesson that you don't take stuff you're not gonna eat, you don't take more than you're gonna eat that day. So fishing and conservation, some people see them as polar opposites. I really see them as 2 sides of the same coin, that you take care of the resource that takes care of you. So Papahanaumokuakea and doing research in support of management is my way of kind of giving back to the ocean and caring for 580,000 square miles of the ocean. And I love to dive. I always have. When you get to college, they ask you, what do you want to major in? And you can't major in diving. You can't major in fishing. So the closest I could get was marine science. And I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. Always have been. Always will be. No shame. That's how I was raised. My parents were academics. And so a love of fishing and this really geeky academic side of me, and kind of majoring in a science was the perfect fit for me. So I majored in science, did some speed bumps along the way. I wasn't always the best student. I had some bad study habits and I paid dearly for it along the way. But eventually I got my act together, wound up in graduate school, specializing in fish behavior. And, it's not too far a jump from there than to joining up with a project like Papahanaumokuakea. And I was really, really lucky that Aulani recruited me to join this project. Because if you love the water, you love to go diving, and you really want to do something for marine conservation, this was almost a once in a lifetime opportunity to be a really small part of something really big. By designating this enormous area of ocean as a marine reserve, to set it aside for its own intrinsic value, I think was a turning point in US environmental policy. And really, it was also a turning point in international marine conservation, because we were kind of the first of these really large remote marine protected areas. And since we came online, I think we were the catalyst for numerous other sites around the world to say, yeah, you know what, we've got this big area of ocean. Let's set it aside for our children and their children, in perpetuity, to protect some of this ocean. And again, I don't see marine protected areas as being anti-fishing. As a fisherman, I actually see them as fishery enhancement tools, that we set aside some parts of the ocean for protection so that we can keep fishing the rest of them sustainably. And so that is kind of my mantra. That's kind of how I live my life. We care for the ocean first before we extract from it. And beyond that, you take only what you need, you do it sustainably, etc. But it's really been a privilege to be a part of this. The fisherman in me loves it, even though we can't fish there. Just to know that there are places like that with enormous schools of ulua and reef fishes, like what Hawaii used to look like 1,000 years ago, and what it might look like 50 years from now with better management. And so, in a nutshell, that's kind of my story. I just loved fishing, diving. I loved being in the ocean. And I was really lucky that I've been able to make a career out of it. And I'd be happy to take any questions now or after all the other speakers go. But that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of how I got to where I am.
Mahalo. I wonder how many people even know what Reader's Digest is. But I love that magazine. I just loved it. Awesome, Randy. That was so great. Any questions out there from the students or staff for Randy? No, I got one. What's your biggest fish?
I think I caught a marlin that was something like 360 pounds. Since then, I don't keep those big ones anymore. I let them go. They're actually a lot more fish than I want to deal with. I just want something for dinner. I'm not trying to feed my whole neighborhood.
Right.
That one was sweet though, because I had a tiny little boat, a 13-foot whaler. And the whaler weighed 330 pounds and the fish weighed 360 pounds. But yeah, nowadays I catch those big ones. I let them go, because those are the spawners. Those are the ones that will perpetuate the species. So I might keep a smaller one, but all the big ones, I let them go now.
Oh, interesting. Very good. And then maybe we were chatting earlier in our prep room. Can you share just a little bit, Randy, about like some of the new things that you guys are finding up in Papahanaumokuakea, and like how you're finding them with those special scuba things that you guys are using?
Yeah, I would love to. I wish I could share pictures. I'll try later on to share my screen again, but
okay.
I love to go too deep on scuba, like deeper than we're supposed to. So we use so-called technical diving. It's like scuba gear on steroids, mixed gas and closed circuit rebreathers. So we're diving 300, 350 feet. So we're going to a part of the world that almost nobody goes to. And then we're going deeper than almost anybody else goes. So it's not surprising that we're finding a lot of things that no one has ever seen before. So a lot of things we come up with are completely new to science. We've had new species of fishes that no one's ever collected before. Lots and lots of new species of algae, of limu. And these are beautiful. You say limu and people think of green pond scum or something that grows in the alawai. These are not that. These are red and purple, and these are some of the most beautiful plants in the ocean. And the really cool part is we find these things, so we have to name them. We have to describe them and give them a scientific name. And we've been going to Papahanaumokuakea's cultural working group So that's, kupuna and cultural practitioners and just interested citizens. And they're helping us come up with Hawaiian names for these new species so that their scientific name in perpetuity will be a place-based Hawaiian word. And so that's, I think, really appropriate, coming from some place that is so ancient and so Hawaiian, and to acknowledge that, to recognize the place-based nature of the research that we do, that we couldn't do it anywhere else on Earth. And these things are not found anywhere else on Earth. And their names now will in perpetuity link them to this really special place. So yeah, that's part of the fun of exploration. It's not all the diving. A lot of it is the lab and the office research that you do after you get back.
Awesome. Mahalo. Mahalo. Okay, let's move on to Chad Wiggins from Nature Conservancy.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here and to share and to be with some of my heroes in ocean conservation. Really, Aulani and Randy, the work that you have done to protect the ocean and to understand it has been an inspiration to me in my career. And it's so great to see Kukui and Mahie and the next generation who wants to carry that on. So I can talk about sort of two careers that I've had for the ocean that I'm so grateful for. And one of them required me to go to college and to study fish. And I'll talk about that one, but the other one really didn't. The first ocean career I had was working for a tour operation on the west coast of Hawaii Island. And I used to captain several sailing catamarans, large catamarans for tourists. And we would go to the same reefs every day, look at the same fish, really got to know the place from the bottom up, and had a lot of adventures over the course of those years, going out in all ocean conditions, seeing big fish, whales, dolphins, manta rays, tiny corals, getting to know which fish are getting along with each other, and just kind of having that observation happen. And that job was great because I got to work with a lot of captains and learn a lot about how to drive boats and how to operate on the ocean. And a lot of the captains that I worked with have gone on to do things like crew on research vessels, to captain long haul ships. So wonderful time to spend a lot of time on the ocean. But I was doing that job after I graduated from college while I was trying to get a job in conservation, and finally found my dream job working with the Nature Conservancy. So for that job, I did need a college degree. A lot of the people that I work with have advanced degrees as well. And so you'll find that a lot in the conservation field, that people do get a lot of education before going into that field. And what attracted me to it was when I was real little, I was kind of annoying. And you probably can't tell that now that I'm an older man. My parents wanted to keep me busy. I was always running around. And so my mom gave me a mask. So when they went to the beach, they wouldn't have to keep me entertained. So I jumped in the water with the mask and started looking around. And my brother was older than me, and started showing me things. He showed me my first hihi manu, um, the first he'e I ever saw, horseshoe crabs, sand dollars. And when I got older, my dad taught me, just like Randy, how to fish, how to throw a net, how to pai ama ama. But the funny thing about all of this is that it all happened in Alabama. That's where I grew up. I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Alabama. And so all of these experiences that I grew up with are similar to how a lot of us grow up here in Hawaii, how my son is growing up here. And so to me, that love of the ocean was instilled at an early age, but it was a different part of the ocean. And then when I was about 16 years old, I got to go to the coral reefs of the Florida Keys for the first time. And that's where I saw a huge ula and giant schools of kaku, at least one frisky shark that I thought at that time was really interested in me. Now I think it was probably just swimming by, but I was young and it was a big shark. So I got so excited and intrigued that when I went away to school, I can never forget that. I can never forget that kind of that ocean call. And I actually went to college to study computer science and business. And in my sophomore year of school in New Orleans, Louisiana, I just realized it's not for me. It's a beautiful thing. People who have those skills are amazing, and we work with them a lot in the work that we do now. But I really needed to get in the ocean and experience it. And so I was fortunate to come to UH Hilo and to graduate from Hilo with a marine science degree, and to meet many of my lifelong friends and colleagues there. And there are so many people in conservation in Hawaii who went to school in the UH system. It's a great opportunity to study if you want to go into a science field. I can't say enough good things about it, but it enabled me to then get a job working with the Nature Conservancy, where I have been for the last 12 years. And I started with the Hawaii Marine Program, working with communities in West Hawaii Island to help take care of the ocean, just like was shared before, that ocean that feeds us. We want to take care of the ocean as well. And since 2 years ago, I've been working with the Palmyra program. So now I'm the Palmyra program director for the Conservancy. And Palmyra is a kupuna island in the Line Island chain. And so if we go about 1,000 miles south of Hawaii around the equator, we get to those kupuna islands, which are just like the Papahanaumokuakea Islands. Those islands have got their younger and their older islands. And so Palmyra, which you can see the Manini School behind me, is just a very wild and protected place. The Nature Conservancy and the United States Fish and Wildlife Service partner to keep it that way. And so we have a laboratory and a facility there where our staff and our volunteers and our partners work to take care of the place. In 2011, there was a partnership with Fish and Wildlife Service, the Nature Conservancy, and Island Conservation to remove all of the rats from Palmyra. No more rats are there. They were introduced by ships, likely during World War II. And after that, we saw that the plants proliferated, and so did a lot of the other life of the land there. What we have seen is that the coral reefs of Palmyra are some of the most resilient that have been studied. We've seen great recovery from the event in 2015 and 16 that really hit a lot of reefs around the world very hard. We lost a lot of coral during that time. At that time, I was studying reefs in Hawaii, and it was emotionally very hard to see all the corals dying. But Palmyra's reefs recovered within a year, fully recovered. It just was able to handle those ocean temperatures that were killing other places and to recover from them. And so that's what drives me today. It's been conveyed to me by Kupuna that we don't heal by seeing the sickness, we heal by seeing the wellness. And Palmyra is that place of wellness that can be an inspiration for all of us, but for those of us who want to see wellness right here in our backyard in Hawaii, I think that we can learn a lot from a place like Palmyra. I think that one of the reasons Palmyra is so healthy and demonstrates so much wellness is because the ocean is intact. The ocean has been well cared for. And the sharks and the seabirds and all of the fish and all of the corals and everything are doing their jobs there without interruption. And we think that's a big part of the reason that the coral is so healthy is because everything that the coral relies on to be thriving is also healthy. But we're still working hard to study that and to share what we learn. We want to be good partners for Hawaii and for the Pacific with the information that we learn at Palmyra Atoll. And I can't wait to support a voyage down there. So we'll talk more about that later. But I'm just like Randy, I feel so fortunate to be in this position, being able to give back to the ocean. I mean, the ocean has saved my life many times. I have put my life at risk in the ocean many times too, but there's nothing that I could say about how grateful I am for the chance to give back and to have that really be my job. And I love the people that work on the ocean here and the people I get to work with in the communities and in throughout Hawaii and throughout the Pacific. So thank you very much for your interest in ocean careers. I really can't wait to see all of you grow into your roles as stewards of the ocean, as travelers upon it. And we're here to support you however you need as you go on that path. So thank you.
Mahalo, Chad. That was great. Anybody have a question for Chad? No? Let's see. Meakala, when did you learn the importance of conservation? What experience made you see the importance?
That's a great question, Meakala. And actually, I learned it right around that time, I was switching from being a computer scientist to a marine biologist. That summer, I went to work in a marine lab in Maine, and I was working growing sea urchins. So we were growing Vana there for the Japanese market. And part of the reason we were growing them in a lab was because the fishery had collapsed. So the sea urchin fishery in Maine was a very popular explosive fishery where people were able to dive and they were able to collect every urchin in certain areas, and they left those areas barren. And then the fishermen couldn't collect anymore. So there were these people who had mortgages to pay, tuition bills, they had boat payments, they needed to buy fuel. They couldn't make a living off of this fishery because it hadn't been managed. And that was my first conservation lesson, was that a lot of times people look at management as, what are you taking away? But really management is vital. If you're going to be able to have an ocean livelihood, it needs to be in a managed industry. And if there's an unmanaged one, then it just takes away from everyone else. So that was my first conservation lesson. That's from me.
Bunny, you're on mute.
I see a couple more questions in the chat. So let's go for one more. How often are you able to go to Palmyra?
Oh gosh, I'm able to go. I'm so blessed to be able to go to Palmyra, and more often than I probably should be going. I was just down there for 2 months at the end of last year. I got back in November. Really, my job is not supposed to be going down to Palmyra all the time. My job is to take care of the people that take care of Palmyra, to take care of the people that are getting in the water, doing the work. But for some reason, they keep making me go back down there again. So I will not say no any chance I can go. And it is a great place to avoid COVID-19. No cases at Palmyra so far. We're working really hard to keep it that way. Thank you.
Awesome. Mahalo, mahalo. Okay, we're going to move on to Aulani.
Okay, aloha mai kako. It's really a privilege to be speaking to you folks, and especially to have two of my nieces who I adore being part of this. Brevity is not my strong suit, so give me a time limit, Kahas. 5 minutes. Does that sound good? And do we have screen sharing privileges? Can I share screen? Because I think better.
Yes,
I would like to share a few photos to talk about, I guess, my story. So here we go. Let's see. So for me, I come from these women. It's kind of hard to tell anybody who's met me. It'd be a big surprise to know that I come from some strong, hardcore women. Really, the women in my family are the matriarchs. They're the ones that have kept our genealogy on my mother's side of the family intact. Yeah, my tutu in the left, top left corner, you know, she was still catching the bus and walking everywhere in town, and you know, nothing could put her down. She was tough as nails, except literally a bus. So the hit by the bus scenario is actually what finally is something that got her to stop being able to do all the things that she did. But she was, even in that, after she got injured, she just had this fortitude that I remember was, you know, something that helped her to survive. And that fortitude, she also had a gift of sight. She could see things way in advance, to the point that it was a burden. But she would share stories about us, about how important kind of being steadfast, being kupa'a, and also, you know, raising your eyes beyond what people feel is the horizon is important. You know, and we stand on a beach, an average height human can only see about 6 miles off into the horizon. That's nowhere near the horizon, right? If you're on a mountain, you can see much farther. If you're in space, much farther. And I think it's really important, because a lot of people think that seeing the horizon from shore is actually the horizon. And what that does is it shows us that we're actually not seeing far enough out, and actually seeking really far enough out. And we have to stretch ourselves. And I could tell you a story about each of these women, but I'm blessed and I'm grateful to have come from that line. And surely I'm carrying that forward. I don't have any daughters, but I'm hopeful that my nieces are carrying that down the line in our family. In particular, I moved from Maui when I was a kid to Oahu, and I remember riding my bike over this bridge. Yes, I'm old. And I looked at this bridge and it's, you know, it had the name of the stream, Kamilanui Stream, 1967. And I remember I was like about 10, I think. And I looked at that number and I was like, 1967 stream, that's not a stream. There's nothing stream like it. This looks nothing like the streams I knew on Maui. So I went home and I asked my mom, how come that's called a stream? And what's the, and did they say it started in 1967, right? Before I was born. And my mom had to explain to me what they did to the stream, how they channelized all these streams to make it safe for people, how our house that we lived in was actually part of the problem, that the place we moved from Maui to live was like took away from that stream. They channelized that stream. They changed the whole way that water flowed to build the house that I was in. And it really upset me. I remember at 10, like being very, very upset at my mother and asking her how she and every adult before I was even born could do that to a stream, could make a decision that would forever never give me that option to know that stream. So this was in me from birth, I'm sure. There was nothing about kind of my passion toward kind of injustices, writing those, that was learned. I don't know where that came from, but somewhere in that genealogy of women. Another thing is that my mom was one of the women that, and men who led to gaining our palace back from the government. They were part of a group of people who just, you know, she went Catholic school. There was the generation, you just wrote nice letters. You just kind of said, please. And then when you didn't get a letter, you said, please again. When you didn't get a letter, you said, please 3 times. And you sat in the office and you paid a visit and you brought cookies and you just kind of kept asking and asking and asking why these were government offices, why if there was a state capitol, we couldn't have our palace back, why we couldn't get all the things that were sold and we couldn't make this into a palace and museum, why can't they get a meeting with the governor to understand that, when is it possible to have that meeting, and really showed a different kind of tenacity, a tenacity of just continuing to ask the questions, be nice about it, but firm. And I spent many Sundays on the grounds of Aulani Palace, helping to do all kind of volunteer work to get this palace back into out of offices and to become a museum so we could enjoy it again. And I remember in particular sitting there with turpentine or paint thinner and taking 7 layers of government paint off of each of the louvers. If you've ever been to Aulani Palace, the front, the windows all have these louvers and they painted them, paint over that beautiful wood, Hawaiian hardwoods. I don't remember what kind. And I remember as a kid, I mean, definitely that's like, I don't know, it would violate some sort of OSHA standard today. But when we were a kid, we could sit there with turpentine and paint and take all these. And I just remember, I didn't understand all the conversations that were happening because I was a kid, but you knew something really tragic happened and you knew how important this was. And my family, you know, was part of just real kind of a quiet resistance to this, always questioning why was this our history and how Hawaii really wasn't part of the United States. So that's part of in me. And that led me to go to Washington, D.C. Actually, after I graduated from college, I decided I was going to go find out how monopoly worked to see if we could change the game back to konane. And yeah, I figured you know, I'm still now old and it hasn't happened yet, but that gave me a lot of good lessons and teaching. And I don't know why I can't advance these slides. And it led me to these beautiful people. These are some of my mentors that have really impacted my life and taught me. And I want to honor them because if it weren't for them and the investments they made in me and the teaching and the firm and loving guidance that they gave me over the years, I would really be empty. I would be an empty vessel. I would have book learning and I would have a lot of attitude, but I wouldn't have any wisdom. And it was really Uncle Buzzy Agard in the top right, Uncle Pinky Thompson in the middle, Dr. Isabella Abbott in the middle bottom, Kenny Brown in the bottom right. And most recently, my dearest mentor, Auntie Laura Thompson, who passed away earlier this year, a few months ago under COVID. And I've given this talk, or I've given talks like this about my mentors, and when I first started, they were all alive. And one by one, they became shadowed into black and white as they passed on. And sadly, now it really makes me realize even more the importance of how are we transitioning, and when do we transition and think not as how we are descendants, but how we are meant to be good ancestors by the choices we make. Those beautiful people led me to this va'a. I joined the Polynesian Voyaging Society as a student. And Uncle Nainoa, I can't believe I just called him Uncle Nainoa Thompson. He's not my uncle, but you guys call him Uncle Nainoa. First like test class, Lili Kala Kame'elehiva was in my class. It was crazy. It was a Windward Community College student. We were total guinea pigs, but that led me to the va'a and really understanding myself as a Hawaiian and a Polynesian very differently. It also made me realize just what incredible ancestors. We knew this from the stories, but then you really realize like the stuff we did. How is it that we can't solve food security today by going back and looking at how we did it and built ancient fish ponds thousands of years ago? We can. That ingenuity is still here and it's in us. How come we cannot think about how we work together and pull together as a community? How can we be split as a community when we used to have these brilliant mechanisms to bring literally everyone in a community together to feed ourselves? These mechanisms are still around and we still have all of this to dig into, and it should fuel how we think about solving problems. We can't do these exact same things and solve today's problems, but it's how we thought about these problems, how we sought to solve them. We should take those ideas and apply them today. And anybody who's worked with me knows that I'm pretty staunch, I'm pretty steadfast, I pretty much dig in when we move, and for good and for bad. Randy has lots of stories, but I also feel like that's something that is part of my kuleana, because I'm one of those people willing to stand in the wind. I just am. I don't know why, but that's, and what it taught me is that's not everybody's kuleana. And don't let anybody tell you what is yours. Your journey in your life is to find your own kuleana and not to tell anybody else what is theirs. We spend a lot of time bossing other people around trying to tell people what their kuleana is, because it deflects from us having to find our own and really be honest with ourselves about who we are. So your job, every one of our jobs, is to really understand what is your unique privilege and responsibilities that we're supposed to offer in life. And those change, because as we grow and become more equipped, just like as we grew in the old days and got new names, right? It really helped to recognize the evolution of us. If our kuleana is the same at 10 years old as it is at 80, there's a problem. You never grew. So that's a constant life journey to figure that out. And once you figure it out, own those characteristics and really try to carry them the best that you can. And now I think about it, because this is my husband and my oldest, who's now 16, and I hope gets to be on the year that you guys go Palmyra, because then I want to be the parent volunteer or the cook or whatever, so I can join that one. And he's 16 and he's a sailor already, but this gives me a whole other view on life and how much it really is important that we spend a lot of time talking about who we descended from, thinking like descendants, and we really have to, the sooner we can think like ancestors and realize that those decisions really are for the next generation, the better off we will be. And the sooner you folks start to do that, the better off you will be, and the better off the whole community and planet will be. Because it really is about passing things along and that intergenerational way of being. So I just share that with you, with all my aloha. Right now, I've worked at the community level, at the county level, at the state level, at the national level. Now I work at the global level. And I can say that there's just different kinds of work, but there's not anything better inherently about working at any one of those levels. It's all about kuleana and knowing at what time do you apply. My son gets on me. He says, "Hey, Mom, you're helping all these people all around the world. How come you're not helping people at home?" So I try to stay grounded. I'm still on a couple of boards and do community work here so I don't get disconnected. But the other thing is we are all connected in this globe. And so no matter at what level you work, there's still connections. And it's amazing how much the world needs Hawaii, how little aloha exists in the rest of the world, and how important it is to see outside of Hawaii to really recognize how incredibly special our island home is, our people, our communities, our culture, our cultures, and how they all link together so that you can really appreciate it. So I wish that for you, that you folks dream big, right? And think big and think small. There's no limits, yeah? Don't let anybody limit you, ever, right? Because you get only this one life that you're in charge of. And so it's important that you make those decisions for you and you figure out how to do you, yeah? And own it and be proud. So my aloha to each of you. Thank you for inviting me to share.
Oh, I'm all pumped up now. I want to go out and do stuff. Right on, Aulani. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. What a great story. What great stories from our three mentors, leaders in our community here, taking care of our oceans, which means taking care of all of us. And so thank you so much. Do we have a question for Aulani? Anybody out there got a question? No? They're all like, oh my God, I got to figure out what my kuleana is. They're all like, mahalo, Aulani. You got the gift there, man, to inspire. That is for real. I want to go out and plan this Palmyra trip right after this meeting. Awesome. Okay.
All right,
well,
I'm the chef. I want to be the chef.
Yeah, right? We're going to need a really big va'a to get down there. Okay, let's hear from Lily. Tell us what you've been up to and some amazing things that have happened since you were voyaged on Halauholo Moana.
Mahalo nui. Aloha mai kākou, guys. I'm Kukui. Mahalo piha for having me on here. That's going to be a tough act to follow. That was so beautiful. Mahalo nui, ya'oko. So yeah, I'm Kukui. I'm a junior here at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. I am majoring in marine science and minoring in Hawaiian studies. And after I graduated from Halauholo Moana cohort 5, Papa Malolo, I came to UH Hilo to pursue my degree. And since then, I've been able to participate in so many wonderful programs that UH Hilo has. After my freshman year in the summer, I got to participate in the Quantitative Underwater Ecological Survey Techniques class, otherwise known as QUEST. And after which I was able to be certified as a scientific diver. And that was where I got to meet Dr. Randy Kosaki. And I also got to work at a lab known as the Multi-Scale Environmental Graphical Analysis Lab, headed by Dr. John Burns. And that's where I got to be introduced to computer science and structures for motion technology, stuff that I would have never imagined myself working with if I was a senior in high school. But I got to work with that, and I also was blessed with the opportunity to participate in the NOAA EPP MSI undergraduate scholarship program, which I'm still currently a part in. And that is where I'm currently working on a project dealing with text analytics and analyzing kuahus or information about kuahus or alters on the island of Ko'olave, and working with the Ko'olave Island Reserve Commission to do that project. And I also volunteer with them sometimes. And yeah, that's what I've been up to since I graduated from Halauholo Moana. And yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Oh, you've been busy. Anybody have questions for Kukui?
Do you enjoy what you do from Ashton? Yes, I love being a student here at UH Hilo. I really enjoy meeting a lot of new people, a lot of professionals out in the field. I think once you go out in any kind of field you guys want to go out in, whether it be business, environmental science, marine science, you're going to find that your field is very broad and that you have a lot of mentors that you can connect with. And just by you guys being here in Halo Holomoana, that's already a sign of you guys branching out and finding your kuleana. So great job, guys. And yeah, that's what I enjoy most about being a student here at UH Hilo, is that you just get to meet many new people, and you get to experience a lot of new things that you probably wouldn't have dreamed of experiencing before attending college. So yeah.
Awesome, mahalo. We can hear those koki frogs too. So we know you are for sure in Hilo tonight. Mahalo. Any other questions for Kukui? And then we'll move on to hear about Mahie's trip. No? Okay. Thank you, Lily, Kukui. Okay, Mahie, you're up. Let's hear about your awesome voyage.
Okay. Aloha everyone. My name's Mahie. I am an alum of Halau Holomoana from cohort 4, so Papakolea. I'm also Meakala's older tita and Auntie Aulani's niece. So super honored, super blessed to be here tonight talking with all of you. I honestly am still processing my trip, and it was almost 2 months ago, and so bear with me, but wanted to share a presentation. It's just a couple photos from the trip, just to give an idea of the opportunity I had. If it weren't, Halau Holomoana was a big part of this trip for me, because, you know, going up to Papahanaumokuakea, there's a huge, talk about kuleana. That's a big kuleana for Kanaka to go up there and bring life back to that place that has lost so much of the presence of Kanaka for so long, and bringing healing and restoration to that place. So a big heaviness for me personally going up there, not feeling like I had a lot of support in the beginning, because I was one of 2 Kanaka going, and it was both of our first times going up there. And so if it weren't for my grounding from Halau Holomoana training, and, you know, the teaching and guidance I got from all the kumu and all of my peers, and then other alumni as well, this trip couldn't have taken place. So super cool to be sharing the story. This is Lalo. This is where I got to go. So it was a 2.5-day trip up on Imua, where, like Auntie Kos shared, I was with 2 other Halau Holomoana alumni, which thank goodness I was with them, because that totally helped me on the trip, having them. And Kavaluna was also on my cohort. He was a part of my cohort. And then Gael, he was an Alakai my year. So it was kind of crazy, the whole Ailona that came with this trip. So 2.5 days up to Lalo. And this is half of the island, but it definitely shows how small the island is. Just a couple photos. As soon as we got there, we were just welcomed by all the Manu and all their leo. This is the first day we took a tour of the island, and every day it was like 5:30 wake up. We would do, some of the scientists would do walks around the island to check all the wildlife, make sure there was no entrapment hazards. But this is the first day where we all went around to kind of look at the spots that we wanted to clear. The main goal of the trip was to remove marine debris, but it was really, like, when you hear marine debris, that's plastic and trash that washes up from other places. But the debris we were cleaning up and removing was actually brought there by whether it be the military station from long ago, and then it was after the military station, it was US Fish and Wildlife. And so they had kind of research stations there, and then the hurricanes came through and totally wiped out all of the structures and all of the opala they had up there. And so it caused a lot of entrapment hazards for the wildlife. So the goal of this trip was to remove those and mitigate entrapment hazards. So that's what we were doing on the first day, just kind of checking it out. And again, the Manu were crazy, and they were definitely our best friends as soon as we got there. super curious. This is a photo of me. And so it's day one, we already got into it. Like it was just 10 hours to 11 hours straight every day with maybe a 45-minute lunch break. We were driven so hard. We did so much work every day. It was just crazy labor. We did a lot of demolition. We removed concrete. And then we would load all this opala into these white bags, and then we had them stationed until day 10 when Imua came back to pick us up. We started loading them, and it took us 2 days to get everything off the island onto the ship. So that was a big part of the process, was just making sure everything was loaded well so we could take it all back to Oahu. This was the last pictures from the second to last day. We removed over 80,000 pounds of opala from Lalo. And so we definitely accomplished our goal, above and beyond our goal. It was an amazing success, and the crew was awesome. Everyone worked really hard. We definitely felt it at the end. Actually, no, day 5 was the worst. That was like middle of the trip. You're like, oh my gosh, got 5 more days left of this heavy labor. Every day you're hauling trash, hauling lumber, using the using heavy tools, and yeah, it was nuts. So we definitely felt super accomplished at the end of it. I wanted to share, so my main kulana going on to this trip, this crew, was actually to kind of incorporate the mission of this organization I was with, Papahanau Mokuakea Marine Debris Project, which they're only about a year old now, or maybe going on 2 years old, but this is their first mission. Their goal is to make Papahanau Mokuakea more accessible to Kanaka and just other people of Hawaii who are interested in knowing more about this place that is connected to us, but we don't have the opportunity or access to go up there. And so a part of that too is incorporating our history and our leo and our voice into that place, and connecting again through our cultural practices that a lot of the people who go up there don't know about and don't practice when they go. It's not a priority, unfortunately. And so my kulana going up there was to lead protocol for the whole trip with Ka'ehukai, who's the other Kanaka with me. We were kind of partners in that. And so, yeah, so that was definitely a big kulana. And again, like I shared before, if it weren't for the training and grounding I had through Hala Holomoana, I didn't feel prepared regardless, because I'm not the type of person to be like, yeah, I'm ready for this. No, but I didn't know it, but I was, and now I know it was because of Hala Holomoana. So that was amazing. Yeah, that's the trip. If you guys have questions about the trip, it was super awesome, and it was an amazing experience. I will share that, oh, this is what I wanted to talk about too. Going to how I was the one of 2 Kanaka on this trip. There were 10 of us on the island, 11 of us. It was definitely a struggle, and kind of one of my big takeaways going up there is the heaviness that I felt, the eha that I felt going there was largely due to feeling like there's not a lot of pilina that people have with the aina and the poe up there, yeah. And so for me, coming home, it was almost like that experience motivated me to want to continue that goal of Papahanau Mokuakea Marine Debris Project and other organizations such as Hala Holomoana, is letting this place become more accessible to Kanaka, because that's what it means, right? We went to do physical healing, which is like cleaning up plastic, yeah, which is important. But to me, what was more important, and what I felt like the rest of our hui didn't really completely understand or comprehend, was the spiritual healing of that place. That is far more important of a goal than cleaning up opala. is when you have those two things go hand in hand, it's much more powerful and much more fulfilling too for Kanaka who get to go up there. It's an amazing experience when you get to see the physical labor that you're doing go side by side with the spiritual healing that you get to do through Oli and through just connecting with the poe up there. I felt like it wasn't a priority for us to do, like we spent 11 hours a day cleaning up, and never were we encouraged to take a moment to reflect, take a moment to just look at what our surrounding and connect with our surrounding. And so I had to like do that on my own time in the pitch dark while everyone's sleeping, and like I want to go to bed, it's only 8 p.m. kind of deal. So those are definitely values that are lacking up there still yet, even in these projects that are starting to get it and starting to see, like we're lacking in these in the cultural values that help make these types of missions stronger. So people are seeing that, but we definitely need more of it, and that's where all of you guys come in. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. I also, sorry, I'm talking too much, but another thing I wanted to share was a story that before going up, I was talking to Mana Morales, which was he's a cohort. He was in my cohort, and we're still good friends. And I was kind of sharing with him some of my hesitations and fears going on the trip. And he's the type of guy he'll listen, and then he won't respond, and then he'll just send you this long text that sometimes makes sense and sometimes doesn't. But I sent him all these things, and I was like, Mana, what do I do? And he sends me this story. It's a quick one. I'll just share real quick. There was a super old story that my tutu told me when I was a kid before he passed away. He said a va'a full of fishermen wanted the biggest fish for their moku, and while looking for this fish, they traveled into Po. Not having right intentions, their mind got misconstrued, becoming consumed with hate and greed. But one Lavaia did his oli, prayed to the akua, and gave offering to Po and his almakua. While in control of his mind, while everyone else went crazy, he was calm and in control of his mind. His almakua mano came to his rescue with the biggest fish he has ever seen and took him back to his home. When getting off the back of the mano, he looked at the fish and realized that what he had learned was way more valuable than the fish. So he gave it as an aloha and mahalo gift to the mano. They went their separate ways. So I share this for two reasons. One, Halau Holo Moana is going to give you the most special thing of all, and that's friendships for a lifetime. This Kanaka shared this story with me, and it really helped me on my trip. And that was because of he knew what I was going through, and that was because of the friendship that formed through Halau Holo Moana, which is amazing. Not to mention, I went on the trip with 2 other good friends from Halau Holo Moana. And then the second reason is that this story really, for me, highlighted what the true importance of these types of trips, and it's grounding yourself in intention. And if that intention is pono, it doesn't matter if you're prepared or you're not prepared or whatever it may be that you're scared about. If your intent is pono and you know exactly what you want to do going up there, especially crossing over Po, yeah, as long as that's pono and that you walk in that the whole way there, the whole way back, you don't have a lot to worry about. So yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
Mahalo, Mahie, that was beautiful. And I think that's, Kukui and Mahie and all our other students and youth out there. I mean, after I hear that, I'm just like, oh, we're safe. Like the world's going to be okay. Because, when we first went on our voyage in 2002, and here we are, like, oh, we have to learn how to do some protocol. And that was like, I think the first time that protocol had ever officially been done. And here we are on the bow of the ship approaching Nihoa. And it's so amazing, just the physical and the physical presence of that island. And here we are, these kind of like naive and young Hawaiians out there, and here we are trying to, you know, do the best chant that we can. And now, the almost 20 years later, you know, you guys are doing it, and with so much more knowledge and so much more awareness than I think I ever had at your age, for sure. And then my age at the voyage was much older, but you know, we're just in really good hands. And I'm so grateful that both you, Kukui, and Mahie have had these amazing experiences, like many of our alumni have had and are going to have. And you know, it's really in the wake of our ancestors and Randy and Aulani and Chad, and being right there in the work, and you know, doing the hard stuff, right? Like Mahie said, sometimes you're just chipping cement and getting it out of there because it doesn't belong, and spending long times in the lab and doing policy making, and just all these amazing things that, you know, voyages just don't happen, right? They're intentional, and they're planned, and they happen with purpose, and that's how we view life. Is life is a voyage, and how are we gonna be the ancestor, right, Aulani? How are we gonna act as the ancestor and leave a legacy behind? So I'm so grateful. I know we're running a little bit over time, but I want to know if there's any questions out there that that want to be asked and answered. Okay, one question for Lily, and then we'll close it up. And I want to ask Randy, Chad, and Aulani if you could each close with one last kind of mana'o or words of wisdom for our group, if you don't mind. So Lily, the question for you is, what are some hands-on activities that you got to do in the water as part of your experiences at UH Hilo?
There's actually a lot. So you have everything from your classes to extracurriculars that you can participate in. As your first year, as a freshman, I got to do a biodiversity lecture and a lab where you actually go out and you snorkel based on your comfort. But I have a feeling that you guys are all amazing kite people, so you guys get to go out and you guys get to snorkel around, get a feel about what conservationists do in terms of surveying and monitoring. And then for oceanography, you guys get to go out on a boat. Even now, they're still trying to do boat activities, boat labs, but with COVID restrictions and regulations. But you get to do that. And then when you get to the upper division classes, I'm currently in Pelagic Methods right now. And so that's a class where you get to learn about a lot of technology and techniques that scientists use out on the water, out on the boat. And so we're currently learning how to use heavy equipment, castaway monitors that kind of measures oxygen, I believe, dissolved oxygen, conductivity in the water, all those kinds of water quality measurements that you're going to probably be using as a scientist. And then, as I said before, the Quest program is what you'll probably really want to get into right away once you enter UH Hilo. That's where you get to have an in-depth experience, literally an in-depth experience about diving, research diving. And then after that, you can also go into the scientific diving qualification course if you want to become a scientific diver and if you want to go diving for a job and a career. So those are just some of the activities that UH Hilo has.
Mahalo Kukui. Okay, so I guess we'll go back in the same order. So we'll throw it over to you, Randy, for some closing comments.
Well, I'll just kind of build on what Kukui said, which is that Quest is an amazing opportunity. I don't want to mention dates, but way back in the 1900s when I was a Quest student, the end result of that was my very first trip to the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands as a MOP intern. I know I embarrassed Kukui, but I met her last year at Quest and she was pretty clearly one of the best and the brightest. You know, she came in, honestly, she didn't have a whole lot of skills specific to Quest, but she grew them there and she's grown them since. And so just if this is of interest to you, you know, pursue every opportunity that you have. And now she's working in the mega lab with John Burns, and she's better than me at computer statistics and then 3D photogrammetry. And, you know, so you don't have to come in loaded with a lot of skills. You just have to come in with a passion and a desire and a willingness to learn. And she's gonna be way ahead of me in a year or two. Quest is yet another route that students can get to Papahanaumokuakea. If it weren't for COVID, we go to Quest, we kind of scout them, and the best, 2 or 3 best and the brightest, we actually hire them as interns to go on a research cruise. And so I'm sure you know some of the folks that have gone with us, Lily, but so that's yet another path to the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands. But all of this, listening to you folks has made me think back to a conversation I had many years ago with Auntie Laura Thompson. And this one, I've done 20 trips up there on NOAA ships, which are all amazing. But far and away, hands down, the best trip I have ever had to Papahanaumokuakea was not on a NOAA ship. It was on Hokulea. And that for me was a life-changing experience. It changes the way you view the world. It changes the way you view these islands. It changes everything in your life. And I came back from that just like wide-eyed. I've been there enough times and I've seen enough undergraduate students go there, and they come back like that was a life-changing experience for them to see the Kupuna Islands and see what virgin stocks of fish look like and see the upright rocks on Mokumanamana. Well, I came back from Hokulea that wide-eyed. I was telling Auntie Laura all about it. And her comment was, that's nice, Randy, but we won't have succeeded until cultural access trips are not seen as something special. When we get to the point that cultural access there is seen as normal, then we will have succeeded. And so, yeah, no pressure, you guys. That's on your shoulders. I think the future is in really good hands. We've seen that here today, obviously. And I think we're halfway to that point where cultural access is starting to seem normal. And so, yeah, the future is yours. And I think we're in really good hands. And thank you again so much, mahalo, for having me tonight.
Mahalo nui, Randy. Mahalo. Thank you so much for your time and those amazing words. We'll head over to Chad.
All right, mahalo nui. I want to build off what Randy shared. First of all, Quest is amazing. And as a scientific diver, I have had moments in the water doing my job where I have the conscious thought, this is the best job in the world. And I don't know how many other jobs you get that. So that's an amazing thing for people who want to spend time underwater for a living. Quest is great. It's like a good way to do it. But there's a lot of other ways that we can spend our lives on the ocean and that we can have an ocean career. And something that you shared, Mahie, was the significance of having the connection. So many people doing the same work, 2 people have a deeper connection to the work. And so whatever career path brings you to the ocean or not, bringing that piece of you that has that deep connection to work every day is just going to make it that much better and more rewarding. And we will shift that from a small group within a larger whole to a large group and bring everyone to that place of connection. And it's very exciting to see all of the many people who are working to make that happen, all of the kumu who are planting these seeds and how these seeds are spreading on the wings of the manu across the Pai'aina. So one thing I heard tonight is life is a voyage. How are we going to be the ancestor and leave our legacy behind? And that's from Aulani and from Bonnie, just words of wisdom. But I want to leave y'all with one more words of wisdom quote for trying new things. And this quote is, if you only do what you can do, you'll never be more than you are. And that quote was said by Master Shifu in Kung Fu Panda 3. And I completely agree with it. Po, the dragon warrior, grew up to be more than he thought he could be. And all of us can do that too if we keep growing and trying new things. So thank you.
Mahalo. That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Chad, also for spending your evening with us. And we have lots more work to do together to plan our Palmyra voyage. So thank you so much. Okay, Aulani, if you want to bring it home for us this evening, and then we'll have a closing.
Oh, who wants to follow Chefu? Who wants to follow that? Yeah. Gosh, just a couple of things. I guess, first is, be authentic. You don't have to be a marine scientist. You don't have to be a marine engineer. You don't have to want to go and be a kumu. Be who you are. I have like a policy, pre-law, and business background. I took some science classes, but then I made friends with people like Randy, and then you got all the science you need, right? It's about the collective. We don't all got to be the same people. I call him Chief still yet to this day. And when I have science questions, I still call him. And he still answers my texts and my calls for some reason. But, it's about everybody together, right? We don't have to have the same thing. And so don't follow somebody else's path. Be authentic to who you are, what you're interested in. And then I'd say, follow your gut, right? Our ancestors talk about na'au for a reason. And if you think too hard about all the ramifications or all the things you're going to do or all it could become or all it might not be or any of that, you're never going to go. Like, we didn't set out to change the world when we went to go protect our Kupuna Islands. We just went to this amazing place. It changed our lives. We're like, oh my God, we have some kuleana, not quite sure what it is, but here we go. And each of us have that story. Like, each of us knew we got some kuleana and he had to come back and do something with that. But if we stop to say, you know what, when we do this 20 years from now, the world will have changed because of our example, we wouldn't have gone. Too scary, too big. But open yourself up, right? Follow your gut and do it with the authenticness that you have, right? And then dream big. On that huaka'i that we went in 2002, I don't know if you remember this, Kahas, but we had this one room, we called it Club Kex because it was like our hangout room. It was the production facility that Kahas did all her little stand-ups with Na'alehu Anthony to do these stories every day. And we had all kind of conversations. And one of the things we were like joking, like, what will success be? And, what will success be 20 years from now? And we said stuff like, Va are going to voyage up there regularly. And we're like, yeah, right. That'd be amazing. Imagine the bureaucracy in that. No way are those guys ever going to let that happen. Right. And now we're talking about how, what Auntie Laura said. I mean, know that story. I hadn't heard that story of Randy's before. And that's true. Those seeds, those threads. We talked about how weathercasters would say Papahana moko akea in a forecast. And they would tell the weather and talk about that. This just happened last week with the big storm. It talked about what it was doing over here. And it talked about what was happening up there. Right. And you'd think, that students would know there were more than 8 islands. When I grew up, some people thought there was 5. Nobody counted Ni'ihau, Koho'olawe, or Lanai, right? There was like 5 when we grew up, right? Not 132 atoll shoals, submerged reefs, blah, blah, blah. That Hawaii is much bigger than the main Hawaiian Islands. And in fact, on a news article recently, it referred to our islands as the Southeastern Hawaiian Islands. And I loved that. It was awesome. Perfectly geo-referenced, right? It was the Southeastern Hawaiian Islands, right? It's how you change the mindset. So my last point, right? First is be authentic, follow your gut, then dream big, right? And but then now it's your turn. So we opened the door, we peeked around, we walked in with our junk oli back then and trying to figure it out, a little bit scared, but nobody else knew if we had the words right. So we just did it. Yeah. I remember thinking, oh man, the ancestors are just going to have to go with intent because we know we're getting it kind of wrong, but nobody else on our voyage knows that we're not saying these words correctly. And we just gave them, right? And we did whatever we could. And then we went through and then we figured out mechanisms to keep the door open. So now that the door is open, maybe knock down the wall. Maybe no more door, maybe no more building, right? Now Mahia is talking about a proposal to have partnerships. Right on. You guys are now going to have the Ike and the Mana'o to be able to take it to the next level. We did our piece. Your turn. Aloha.
Mahalo, 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 everybody. We'll close with Navin tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Yava anui, yava akia ora, yava apelele u aman alele mamala, amanu o uka, amanu o kai, I ivi pole na akauka hoku, A kawi ka malama a pai kula. A mama wanoa.
Mahalo. Have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you so much for spending the time. Everybody can unmute.